He thought love was his weapon, but he never imagined she would be the one to pull the trigger. Please hit that subscribe button for Revenge with Roxy so you don't miss another story of justice being served. She'll never know. It's already done. Those 7 words, spoken in a hushed, conspiratorial tone, still haunt my quietest moments. They are a ghost in my own home, a chilling echo that turns my blood to ice, a permanent reminder that the greatest monsters are the ones we invite inside. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand the nightmare, you have to first understand the dream. My name is Amelia Collins. I'm 34 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, my life felt like a beautifully written script. I was living in Kansas City, Missouri, engaged to a man I believed was carved from my deepest desires. His name was Benjamin Torres, and he was, in every conceivable way, perfect. He was a successful financial advisor for a prestigious firm, Tvanta Corporation, a man who moved through the world with an easy, magnetic confidence. He wore tailored suits like a second skin and had a smile that could disarm armies. He was everything I had ever told myself I wanted. 6 months ago, he proposed. We were on a hiking trail overlooking the city lights as dusk painted the sky in shades of violet and rose. He went down on one knee, the ring box opening with a soft click, and in that moment, I felt the final, chaotic pieces of my life snap perfectly into place. I was marrying the love of my life, but perfection is a fragile illusion. And 3 weeks ago, that illusion was shattered into a million pieces. The evening began like any other. We had just finished a wonderful dinner at our favorite Italian place downtown. The air was filled with the scent of garlic and wine, and the low hum of happy conversations. I remember feeling a deep sense of contentment, mixed with a little exhaustion. We'd been deep in the throes of planning our honeymoon to Costa Rica, a trip Benjamin had meticulously designed. He'd insisted on somewhere adventurous, somewhere we could push our limits, hiking through dense jungles and exploring remote coastlines. I adored that he shared my passion for the outdoors, for the raw, untamed beauty of nature. Or at least, I thought he did. When we arrived back at my apartment, the comfortable silence of our shared routine settled around us. I kicked off my heels and excused myself for a long, hot shower, leaving my phone on the kitchen counter. For the past few weeks, it had been acting up, the voice recording app activating itself at random. It was an annoying glitch I kept meaning to get fixed. I never imagined that a simple technical malfunction would become the thread that would unravel a tapestry of lies and save my very life. Standing under the steaming water, I could faintly hear the murmur of Benjamin's voice through the bathroom door. I assumed it was a business call. He was always taking them at odd hours, but his tone was different this time. It was hushed, urgent, laced with an unfamiliar edge that made the fine hairs on my arms stand up. A knot of unease tightened in my stomach, but I quickly dismissed it. Benjamin's world was one of high-stakes investments and anxious clients. This was just another fire he had to put out. 20 minutes later, I walked out, wrapped in a towel, to find him sitting on the couch, looking the picture of calm. He was scrolling through his phone, bathed in its soft blue light. He looked up and gave me that warm, familiar smile, the one that had captured my heart in a coffee shop 18 months ago. The strange feeling I'd had in the shower evaporated almost instantly. "Everything okay with work?" I asked, sinking onto the cushion beside him. "Just the usual client drama," he said, wrapping an arm around me and pulling me close. "Nothing for you, my love, to ever worry about." But later that night, long after Benjamin had kissed me goodnight and driven back to his own apartment, a different kind of quiet descended. As I was getting ready for bed, I noticed my phone's recording app was still running, the little red icon glowing ominously on the screen. With a sigh of annoyance, I went to shut it down, but curiosity got the better of me. I hit play, expecting to hear nothing more than the ambient sounds of my apartment. Instead, I heard the voice of the man I was supposed to marry, and my world tilted on its axis. Benjamin's voice, clear and cold, filled the silence. "She'll never know. It's already done. The policy went through yesterday and everything's set for the trip." My hands began to tremble, the phone suddenly feeling heavy and foreign in my grasp. He had been on the phone while I was in the shower, and my faulty little device, my broken piece of technology, had captured every single terrifying word. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, the city lights twinkling outside my window like distant, indifferent stars, and I played that recording over and over again, Each time I heard it, a new layer of dread washed over me. What policy? What trip? The man on that recording was a stranger. His voice was secretive, calculating, stripped of all the warmth and affection I had come to cherish. This wasn't my Benjamin. This was someone else entirely. I'd met Benjamin 18 months ago at a little coffee shop near my office, where I work as a marketing coordinator for Zentron Global. He had approached my table with such disarming charm, commenting on the book I was reading. He made me laugh, a genuine, unforced laugh that surprised even me. I was usually so shy, so guarded around strangers. But with him, it was easy. Our relationship had blossomed into what I thought was a modern fairy tale. He was attentive, romantic, the kind of man who remembered the name of my childhood pet and my favorite flower. He seemed to embrace my love for hiking and rock climbing, passions I'd nurtured since college. In fact, he actively encouraged them, suggesting we tackle more challenging adventures together, pushing me to explore more remote, more dangerous terrain. Looking back, I can see the sinister methodology in his encouragement. He was grooming me, not for marriage, but for a very specific kind of death. He had woven himself into the fabric of my life so seamlessly. He'd met my parents and won them over instantly. My mother would often tell me how lucky I was to have found such a devoted, caring partner. My best friend, Jennifer, confessed she envied how protective he was, how he always seemed to put me first. Everyone adored him. Everyone saw the perfect man. Now, sitting in my living room, with those recorded words echoing in the darkness, all those beautiful memories began to curdle. A horrifying picture started to form, piece by agonizing piece. 3 months ago, Benjamin had brought up the subject of life insurance. He'd framed it as a practical step for an engaged couple, especially one with our active, high-risk lifestyle. It had seemed so sensible, so mature. I remembered how he'd insisted on handling all the paperwork, citing his financial expertise. "I understand the fine print, sweetheart," he'd said. "Let me take care of it," and I had. I'd signed every document he placed in front of me, my trust in him absolute. Why would I ever question the man I was building my future with? But now, those conversations took on a terrifying new light. His gentle suggestions for higher coverage amounts. His insistence that we name each other as sole beneficiaries. His casual mention that policies of at least $500,000 were standard for people in our position. It wasn't caring. It was calculated. My thoughts drifted to our honeymoon in Costa Rica, specifically the remote trails in Manuel Antonio he'd been so excited about. He'd brushed off my suggestions of more popular, safer locations. He wanted us to be off the beaten path, away from the tourist crowds, where we could have a real adventure. He had spent hours researching the most isolated routes, the ones with sheer cliffs and treacherous terrain. My stomach churned with a nauseating certainty. I wasn't planning a honeymoon. I was planning my own murder. I forced myself to listen to the recording again, straining to hear more. Benjamin's voice was fainter now, but the words were unmistakable. "The location is perfect. No witnesses for miles. Make it look completely natural." I felt a wave of sickness so intense I had to grip the edge of the table. I needed help, and I needed it immediately. The next morning, my mind was a fog of fear and adrenaline. I called in sick to work and spent the entire day hunched over my laptop, frantically searching for private investigators in Kansas City. I knew I couldn't walk into a police station with a garbled, partial recording and a gut feeling. They would think I was a paranoid fiancé. I needed proof. I needed undeniable, concrete evidence. After hours of research, I found her. Detective Patricia Hughes, a retired police officer with her own agency, specializing in complex domestic cases and insurance fraud. Her reviews spoke of a sharp mind and a no-nonsense attitude. She agreed to meet me that afternoon in a quiet, unassuming cafe, far from my neighborhood. Detective Hughes was a woman in her late 50s, with intelligent gray eyes that seemed to see right through me and a firm handshake that inspired confidence. I stumbled through my story, my voice trembling as I played the recording for her. I watched her face as she listened, her expression hardening from professional curiosity to grave seriousness. "This is more than suspicious," she said when the audio finished, her voice low and steady. "But you're right. On its own, it's not enough. We need to build a case. Tell me everything you know about Benjamin Torres. His past, his finances, any previous relationships." As I began to talk, a cold realization dawned on me. I knew so little about the man I was about to marry. He told me he was engaged once before, to a woman named Catherine Walsh. He said she had died in a tragic hiking accident 2 years ago. At the time, my heart had ached for him. I admired his resilience, his ability to open himself to love again after such a profound loss. Now that story felt less like a tragedy and more like a blueprint. "I need access to every document you've signed," Detective Hughes instructed, her tone all business. "Insurance policies, beneficiary forms, financial statements. I also want to run a comprehensive background check on Mr. Torres, focusing on his past relationships and any insurance claims he's ever filed. How long will this take?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Give me a week for the preliminary investigation," she replied. "In the meantime, you need to act completely normal. Do not let him suspect for a second that anything is wrong. Can you do that, Amelia?" I nodded, though the thought of sharing a meal, a conversation, a kiss with the man who was plotting my death made me feel physically ill. Before I left, Detective Hughes handed me a tiny recording device, no bigger than a USB stick. "Keep this on you at all times," she said, her eyes locking with mine. "If he says anything else, we need it on tape. And Amelia," she paused, her expression softening slightly, "be incredibly careful. If what we suspect is true, you are in grave danger. Do not go anywhere isolated with him. Don't consume anything he prepares for you. And always make sure someone knows exactly where you are." That evening felt like a scene from a horror movie. Benjamin came over for dinner, bringing takeout from my favorite Thai place, just as he always did. But as I watched him unpack the containers and serve the food, Detective Hughes's words were a deafening siren in my mind. Every gesture seemed rehearsed, every smile a carefully constructed mask. When he casually suggested we try a new remote hiking trail that weekend to practice for Costa Rica, a chill snaked its way down my spine. "Actually, I've been feeling a bit run down," I said, my voice sounding surprisingly steady. "Maybe we should take it easy for a bit, stick to the simpler trails." For a fleeting instant, a shadow crossed his face, a flicker of annoyance, or perhaps something darker, before his charming smile snapped back into place. "Of course, sweetheart. Whatever you're comfortable with." But I saw it. I saw the flash of cold calculation in his eyes, and it terrified me more than anything ever had. Exactly 1 week later, my phone rang. It was Detective Hughes. Her voice was grim. "We need to meet. Now. What I've found is much worse than we imagined." I met her at the same cafe, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my coffee cup. She pushed a thick file across the table toward me. Her face was set in a grim line. "Benjamin Torres isn't just planning to murder you for the insurance money," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's done this before. Catherine Walsh, his former fiancée. She didn't die in an accident. She was murdered. My world, which had been tilting, now shattered completely." What do you mean?" "I pulled the police reports from her death," she explained, opening the file. "Catherine was found at the bottom of a cliff in Colorado. It was supposed to be a romantic hiking trip. Benjamin was the only witness. He claimed she slipped. The case was closed as an accidental death." She slid a photograph across the table. A beautiful, smiling young woman, so full of life. Catherine. But here's the part that will sound familiar. Catherine had a $500,000 life insurance policy. Benjamin was the sole beneficiary. I stared at the photo, my heart breaking for this woman I'd never met. She had been me. She had trusted him, loved him, and he had led her to her death. "There's more," Detective Hughes continued, her voice hardening. "We've been monitoring Benjamin. He's been meeting with an individual who deals in untraceable pharmaceuticals. Specifically, drugs that can induce cardiac arrest and leave almost no trace in a standard autopsy. He has also been all over websites detailing remote locations in Costa Rica, paying special attention to areas with steep cliffs and zero cell reception." She produced printouts of his internet search history. My stomach lurched as my eyes scanned the phrases, "natural-looking heart attack drugs," "undetectable poisons," "staging accidental deaths," "life insurance payout waiting periods." "How did you get this?" I breathed. He's not as clever as he thinks. He used a public library computer, probably thinking it was anonymous. He didn't count on the security software that records screen activity. She pointed to the timestamps. "These were all made in the last month, right after you finalized your honeymoon plans." The evidence was a suffocating weight, but the final blow was yet to come. Detective Hughes pulled out another document. My life insurance policy. Amelia, this policy isn't for $500,000, she said gently. It's for $750,000, and he added a double indemnity clause for accidental death. That means if you die in an accident on your honeymoon, he stands to collect $1.5 million. I felt the room spin. He forged my signature. No, she said, shaking her head. You signed it. She showed me a page I'd never seen, an amendment to the original policy. Remember when he brought the paperwork over? He probably had you sign this page separately, telling you it was a duplicate or a beneficiary form. The memory surfaced with horrifying clarity. Benjamin at my kitchen table, papers spread out, his pen pointing here, here, and here. I had signed without a second thought, my trust a blindfold he had expertly tied himself. And there's one last thing, Detective Hughes said, her voice heavy. Catherine Walsh wasn't his first. 8 years ago in Denver, he was engaged to a woman named Patricia Hoffman. She drowned on a camping trip. It was ruled an accident. There was no big insurance payout that time, but it shows he has a pattern. He's been perfecting his method for years. He wasn't just a con man. He was a serial killer. His genius, she said, is that he actually builds these relationships. He makes these women fall deeply in love with him. He becomes the perfect fiancé. So when they die, no one ever suspects the grieving, heartbroken man left behind. Every loving gesture, every whispered promise, every thoughtful gift, it had all been part of his performance. He was an actor, and I was his latest leading lady, cast in a role that was supposed to end with my death. What do we do? I asked, my voice shaking, but a new, cold resolve hardening within me. Detective Hughes leaned forward, her gray eyes glinting with determination. Now, she said, we set a trap. The plan she laid out was as brilliant as it was terrifying. We would allow Benjamin to walk right into his own scheme, all while we gathered the last irrefutable pieces of evidence we needed to put him away for life. I would have to continue playing the part of the loving, trusting fiancé. I would have to wear a wire. The key is to get a confession on tape, she explained. We need him to explicitly state his intentions. Right now, we have a mountain of circumstantial evidence, but a clever lawyer could still raise reasonable doubt. We need to catch him in the act of trying to kill you. That night, as I sat in my apartment waiting for Benjamin to arrive, the tiny recording device felt like a block of ice against my skin. When he knocked, I took a long, shuddering breath and pasted a smile on my face. How was your day, sweetheart? He asked, leaning in to kiss my cheek. The touch that once brought me comfort now made me want to recoil. Good, I said, forcing a casual tone as I followed the script Detective Hughes and I had rehearsed. I was just thinking about the honeymoon. I'm getting a little nervous about some of those advanced trails you picked out. Maybe we should look at some easier ones. His smile tightened, almost imperceptibly. Amelia, we've discussed this. It's good to push yourself. It will be an adventure, and I'll be right there with you every step of the way. But what if something happens? I pressed, letting a note of anxiety creep into my voice. What if one of us gets hurt? We'll be so far from help. Nothing is going to happen, he said, his voice firm, almost cold. I have researched every single detail. I know exactly what I'm doing. The certainty in his tone sent a fresh wave of fear through me. I pivoted the conversation to the insurance policies, feigning confusion about the coverage. You don't need to worry about any of that, he said, his patience visibly fraying. I've handled it all. The policies are perfect. If anything happened, we'd be taken care of. But $750,000 just seems like so much, I said, deliberately using the real number. He went perfectly still. What did you just say? My heart began to pound a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I had made a mistake. A critical one. I thought you said 750. No, Amelia. I told you 500, he said slowly, his eyes narrowing, studying my face. Where did you get that number? My mind raced. I must have misremembered, I stammered. The insurance agent called with a follow-up question last week, and he mentioned a few different figures. I must have gotten them confused. He seemed to relax, but only slightly. A dangerous, analytical look remained in his eyes. What agent? They're supposed to contact me directly. It was just a routine call, I said, trying to wave it off. It was nothing, but I knew he didn't believe me. For the rest of the evening, a tense silence hung between us. He watched me, his gaze sharp and calculating. When he left, his goodbye kiss felt different. It felt final. The moment the door closed, I was on the phone with Detective Hughes. "He knows," I whispered, my voice frantic. "He's suspicious." "I messed up." "Don't panic," she said calmly. "This could work in our favor. A cornered animal makes mistakes. He's more likely to slip up now." "What if he moves up his timeline?" I asked, my fear escalating. "What if he tries to kill me before Costa Rica?" "He won't get the chance. I'm putting a surveillance team on you 24/7. You will not be alone for a single moment," she assured me. "Amelia, I know how terrifying this is, but we are so close. Just hold on a little longer." I was right to be worried. The very next morning, Benjamin called me at my office. His voice was bright, cheerful, and utterly chilling. "Sweetheart, I've been thinking about what you said. You're right. Maybe those Costa Rica trails are a bit much to start with. So how about a practice run this weekend? I found this incredible trail, just a couple of hours outside the city. It's very secluded. It would be perfect for us to test our gear and build your confidence." This was it. Eagles Ridge. He was moving his plan to this weekend. "Oh," I said, feigning surprise. "This weekend? That's so soon. The best adventures are spontaneous," he chirped. "I've already checked the weather. It's going to be a perfect day. Just you and me, away from it all." His words were a death sentence wrapped in a romantic invitation. "That sounds wonderful," I managed to say. After hanging up, I immediately called Detective Hughes. "He's going to kill me this weekend." "I know," she said grimly. "We've been monitoring his calls. He's been in contact with his drug supplier. And he spent last night researching the topography of Eagles Ridge Trail, specifically looking for cliff faces and steep drop-offs." "So what's the plan?" "The plan is you're going on that hike," she said. "But you won't be alone. My team will be in the woods, undercover. We'll have you tracked by GPS. The moment he makes a move, we intervene." "What if you're too late?" I whispered. "We won't be," she said, her voice a rock of certainty. "But Amelia, for the strongest possible charge, attempted murder, we need him to try. We need to catch him in the act." That night, Benjamin came over to help me pack. He was more animated than I'd seen him in weeks, chattering excitedly about the trail. It was surreal, watching him meticulously plan my murder with such cheerful enthusiasm. "Make sure you bring plenty of water," he said, handing me a brand new hydration pack. "And I got these special energy bars. They're amazing for stamina." He kept the bars in a separate pouch in his own pack. Detective Hughes had warned me this was likely how he'd administer the drug, a simple snack on the trail. "I can't wait," I said, my smile feeling like a cheap mask. "It'll be perfect." "Yes," he agreed, and for a moment his own mask slipped. That cold, predatory look was back in his eyes. Just the two of us, completely alone. That night, sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, knowing that tomorrow I would walk into the wilderness with a man who wanted me dead. My only protection was a team of strangers and a tiny wire hidden beneath my clothes. I thought of Catherine Walsh and Patricia Hoffman. They had walked into the dark with him, completely unaware. I had something they didn't. I had the truth. And tomorrow, I was going to use it to burn his world to the ground. Saturday dawned gray and damp, a curtain of mist hanging over the city. It felt like the perfect weather for a funeral. Mine. Benjamin picked me up at 7 a.m., his SUV already loaded with gear. He was in high spirits, humming along to the radio as we left the city behind. "Today is going to be special, Amelia," he said, squeezing my hand. "A day we will never, ever forget." The veiled threat hung in the air between us. As we drove further from civilization, the cell signal bars on my phone dwindled one by one until they disappeared completely. The roads grew narrower, winding deeper into the dense, silent forest. This was his stage, a perfectly isolated theater for his final act. At the trailhead, he was almost comically attentive, checking my bootlaces, adjusting my pack. "Have to make sure you're safe," he said, his voice dripping with false concern. "I'd never forgive myself if anything happened to you." The trail was more remote than I had even imagined. For 2 hours, we climbed steadily, surrounded by a suffocating silence broken only by the crunch of our boots on the damp earth. We didn't see another living soul. With every step, I felt the invisible net tightening around me. Finally, we reached a small clearing overlooking a deep ravine. "Let's take a break," Benjamin announced cheerfully. "You must be getting tired." He pulled out the energy bars. "Here," he said, offering one to me. "This will give you a boost for the final push to the summit." This was the moment. The point of no return. He was trying to drug me before leading me to the cliff's edge. I took the bar, pretending to unwrap it. "You know, I just need to use the restroom," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "I'll be right back." I stepped behind a thicket of trees, my heart hammering against my ribs. Once out of his sight, I dropped the bar to the ground and pressed the emergency beacon Detective Hughes had given me. A few moments later, a faint rhythmic chopping sound broke the silence. The distant whir of helicopter blades. Benjamin heard it too. When I walked back into the clearing, his face was a mask of thunderous fury. The charming fiancé was gone, replaced by the cold-blooded killer. "What is that helicopter doing here?" he demanded, his voice a low growl. "I don't know," I said, feigning innocence. "Maybe it's a park ranger?" But he wasn't buying it. His eyes narrowed, and in that instant, he knew. He saw the truth in my face. "You lying bitch," he snarled, all pretense gone. You know everything, don't you?" There was no more need for the script. "I know you murdered Catherine Walsh," I said, my voice clear and steady. "I know you murdered Patricia Hoffman, and I know you brought me here today to do the same thing to me." His face contorted with a mixture of rage and panic as he realized the trap had closed around him. "How long have you known?" he hissed. "Long enough," I said, pulling the small recording device from my pocket and holding it up. "Long enough to record every lie, every plan, every sick detail of your monstrous life." The sound of the helicopter was deafening now, directly overhead. Below us on the access road, I could hear the crunch of tires. He spun around, a trapped animal looking for an escape that wasn't there. "You have no idea what you've just done," he spat, his voice laced with desperation. "No one will believe you. I'm a respected member of the community. You're just a hysterical woman." "Actually," a new voice said from the tree line. "We believe her." Detective Hughes stepped out from behind a large oak tree, flanked by armed tactical officers. "Benjamin Torres," she announced, her voice booming with authority. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and for the murders of Catherine Walsh and Patricia Hoffman." As they cuffed him, his eyes filled with pure, undiluted hatred found mine. "This isn't over, Amelia," he seethed. I looked back at the man who had been my dream and my nightmare. "Yes, it is," I replied, the words feeling like the sweetest victory. "It's finally over." Benjamin Torres was convicted on all counts. The recordings, the financial documents, the internet history, it was an airtight case. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His carefully constructed world of respectability and charm crumbled into dust, exposing the monster who had hidden in plain sight for so long. At the trial, I stood on the witness stand, not as a victim, but as the woman who had brought him down. I told my story, and in doing so, I gave a voice to Catherine, and to Patricia, and to any other woman whose life he may have destroyed. That faulty phone recording wasn't just a lucky break. It was a lifeline. It was the key that unlocked a killer's secrets and ended his reign of terror. He thought love was just another weapon in his arsenal. But in the end, I was the one who turned that weapon against him. And I was the one who survived to tell the tale.